Hey kids, this is Mark Arm from Mudhoney.
I'm Kevin Martin from Cannabis.
This is Nicole Alvarez from the world-famous K-Rock.
Hi, I'm Dave Cruzen.
I am Matt Vaughn from Easy Street Records.
This is Richard Stuverud.
Hey, I'm James Joseph from James and the Cold Gun.
This is Jeremy Toback from the band Brad.
And this is the State of Love and Trust.
State of Love and Trust.
State of Love and Trust.
A Pearl Jam podcast.
Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. Feed that algorithm.
Welcome to another episode of the State of Love and Trust. It's a Pearl Jam podcast, and I'm one of your two hosts, Jason Kerepesi, and alongside me, as always, is
Paul Ghiglieri.
Paul. Week 2, episode 2 of 2025 for us. I'm excited.
Times.
I mean, are you energized? Are you back? Do you feel back?
I feel back. Back
Good.
in black. Except, well, back in bootleg black, I guess.
Guys, if you are watching this on the YouTube, please go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. That helps other people find this video and channel on the internet, and that would be super helpful for all the people who love Pearl Jam and want to talk about all this stuff with us. They'll find it that way. And if you are an audio-only person, Paul, what should they be doing?
They should rate, review, and subscribe on their preferred podcast platform of choice. Feed that algorithm. That should be your New Year's resolution.
Oh, that's a good resolution to have.
Yeah, I think it's a good one.
Feed more algorithms, starting with ours.
Specifically this one.
This was the first one. You can do the other ones later, but
we'd appreciate it.
Yeah. We'd also appreciate it if you would go down and help out our fundraiser of the month. It's January 2025, so a nonprofit, as I mentioned last week in the live show, Paul, and that is Our Rescue. January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, so we've got to help these people out. Our Rescue it's on a mission to end sex trafficking and child exploitation while empowering survivors to heal and thrive. There is B-roll on your screen right now. There's a QR code on your screen right now. Send them some of your money because they are doing good, necessary work. I wish it wasn't necessary, but it is. If you send $5 or more via that link, we'll send you stickers and pins.
You get stickers. There's just stickers flying all over the place. You get one if you donate. Look at that.
There you go. And if you want one of the shirts that we sell, like Paul is currently wearing, he's got a 2000 bootleg shirt on right now, $5 off. We'll leave you $5 off. So we'd really appreciate that. If you want to say thank you to the show, just throw us a little thank you. We do have Patreon, a lot of little extra stuff over there, extra content. We also have a great Discord channel. The community over there is fantastic. And we do actually do a giveaway each month to one lucky patron. This month, Paul, the Patreon giveaway is a $30 e-gift card to our online shop.
Hey. It's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year long.
It's the Jelly of the Month Club, Paul. So if you were considering getting one of those shirts or getting a beanie or a hoodie or an apron or a flag or a coat, whatever, here's $30 just for being a patron.
Exactly.
Bang. Start the year off right.
You're repping a community. It's not even about us anymore. That's my favorite part about this, to be perfectly honest with you.
Absolutely. But you keep saying that, but like the Patreon stuff and the shop, the online shop, they're really fun and they're really cool and we appreciate it, but it all goes back into this endeavor. And whatever we can do to make this better for all of you out there, that's what we're going to do with that. So we thank you in advance. We thank everybody who's already bought merchandise from the shop, as many have already. So thank you very much. And flaunt it if you got it. Send photos. Why not? It is 2025 now, as I mentioned. This is the 30th anniversary of a lot of things, Paul. We mentioned it last week. We started it with our Self-Pollution Radio live broadcast, if you will, and we're continuing it this week. And this week, it's 30 years to the day of a very important concert, the first of two concerts back-to-back in Washington, D.C., Paul. These are huge.
Epic shows. Iconic in Pearl Jam lore.
So who better to talk to than someone who's been to basically 200 shows over 33 years, started her own fanzine, started her own fan website that all of you have been to, and she happened to be there. Why not talk to her and get both shows? Let's talk to her and get the real perspective on that experience and why those shows are important then and now. So coming up next, we're talking the Constitution Hall shows with Kathy Davis. This week, we are privileged to be joined by a stalwart of the Pearl Jam fan community for over 3 decades. She created the fanzine, I don't know, Footsteps, and co-founded the website 2 Feet Thick, both integral? I don't know which version of English I'm speaking today. Parts of the analog and digital fan community. You guys know who you are out there. Welcome to the show, Kathy Davis.
Hi.
It's
Thank
a
you
pleasure
for
to
the
have you,
lovely
Kathy.
intro. So happy.
Absolutely.
To be
You deserve it.
Well deserved.
here. You guys rule.
Talk to me real quick about Footsteps. I mean, I'm sure you've been asked about this before and plenty of other places, but like 94 it started?
92.
92, okay.
Yep. I went to see U2. I got home to a voicemail from my co-editor, Randy Osnenko. She's like, I heard you into Pearl Jam now. Let's do a fanzine. Because we were both madly collecting shit. And that was like November of 92. By December, we had an issue done.
Wow.
Because we had so much stuff. We burned up the phone lines because she lived in New Orleans area or Baton Rouge, and I lived out here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And thus it was born, and we did 10 issues in 5 years. And like we were featured in newsletter 6, the 10 Club newsletter 6. And that's when all hell broke loose because they didn't have anything, you know, for fans directly. Like 10 Club was just kind of getting its sea legs, and they had so many people that were running it. And so they put us in their newsletter, and then all hell broke loose. We would get like 100 letters a day after that. And
you guys were deep before
times.
deep was a thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And then 2 Feet Thick, we did 2003 to 2013, I think. So it's been a minute.
That was a bummer when that
went
went away.
I know.
And we still have all the archives are all there, but I'd love to put it back up.
Where are they listed, by the way? Because I mean, you can't find them now.
Well, they're just not online now. We've let our shit lapse, but anyway, we'll get it up there at one point.
Okay.
Jessica has kids, so she's like being mom now. So, and JR, my other co-editor, kind of retired from Pearl Jam, weirdly. So, which I don't understand how you could do that, but all power to you, JR.
Well,
retire from Pearl Jam? What's that?
we don't want to bring you on just to talk about those two things. They are great, and they are parts of the history of this band and its community, which we believe are one. But you were at 2 very famous shows, and that is now in its 30th anniversary, like today as this episode comes out, and mañana as this episode comes out, and those are the Voters for Choice shows at Washington, D.C.'s Constitution Hall. And at the time, the band hadn't performed anywhere in about 9 months. And there was a new drummer, maybe. We didn't know for sure exactly who was going to be drumming because Dave was kicked out in August, and Jack played it at the bridge school, but was he going to stick around? We didn't know. These were huge. These were massive. The crowd sizes weren't massive, but the shows were massive. And so Paul and I were thinking, we should talk about these shows on their 30th anniversary. We're showing our age. Oh my God, 30 years. And we got to talk to somebody who's been there. Because we could watch the videos, we could listen to the boots, but that doesn't mean anything. Let's talk to somebody who's there, who experienced it firsthand. And so friend of the show, Pearl Jam Radio's Rob Bleetstein goes, you got to talk to Kathy. And I go, fuck yeah, we do. So we hit the bat phones and we called you. And
it worked out. Yeah. Context is important for sure. And I think it gets kind of slid under the radar a bit how it historically important in the Pearl Jam world that these 2 shows are, because they are Jack's first plugged in shows. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's like, they put the rubber stamp on his forehead and said, you're the drummer now, kind of, I mean, Self-Pollution kind of pulled the trigger on that a little bit, but this is the test of his mettle, really. Yeah. And so I think it does kind of, it's great. It's a good thing you guys are featuring these, because I think they're pretty important in the lore, so to speak.
Absolutely. I mean, was it 175,000 postcards sent in?
Yeah, I was 500 of those, and I did not win. Would you like me to tell that story quickly?
Yeah.
Please.
Please
Talk about
This is
500
hilarious
not
what
getting
I
it.
did.
Kathy. Pray tell.
This is me. Yeah, this is me going, I'm doing a fanzine, whatever. I'm going to just go anyway. I literally flew across the country with no tickets. I had no intention of hitting anybody in the band up for tickets, even though we have been blessed with passes and stuff before that many a time. They're very generous with, they liked what we did, so it was all cool. But I wasn't gonna, I knew how hard of a ticket it was. We're not like that. I never asked the band for anything in my whole stint as a Pearl Jam fan, never once, and I never will. And it was just one of those things where, well, let's put ourselves in the path of glory and see what happens. And that was basically us going, well, they're probably staying here. Let's go stay there. I have to cop to that and say, yeah, we stayed at the hotel that we thought they would probably be staying at.
Wow.
And well, if you run into somebody that works for them, maybe. No one asked, but we'll see what happens. And weirdly, one of my party ran into Stone outside of the hotel, maybe getting coffee or some weird ass thing. And, oh, I recognize you for some shows, you know, with my friend Amy. And, how you doing? You going to the show? No, we don't have tickets, but, you know, have a great time. And he's like, oh, I'll get you guys in. So literally the first night, Stone got us in. So the first night
Stone,
is
Carpenter, Gossard, you so-and-so.
Stone C, they got us in the orchestra, row P. Okay, that was the first night. And this, we were, you know, I mean, I kind of knew a lot of the crew guys, Eric Johnson, their tour manager, their stellar tour manager, very kind to us, great guy. We ran into him and he's like, oh, you guys have tickets? No. But Stone took care of us. I mean, that was pretty hilarious to say, oh, Stone took care of us. And then he gave us hugs because he was so happy we weren't asking for anything. So as a result, that seed was planted and they laid tickets on it for the next night. So the next night, we had our own box. It was like one of those things where people walk up to the box and go, how'd you get these tickets? We're like, we didn't want to say, we know a guy, but we just said, oh, we know a guy. We didn't want to say the band.
You knew two guys.
That was, yeah, we happen to know. And so the second night was tour manager.
So Pearl Jam was able to circumnavigate Ticketmaster because the shows were not-for-profit benefits, and you were able to circumnavigate Ticketmaster because you just, on a whim, just decided to show up
because
in
I
DC.
flew my ass back to DC in the cold of winter. You know, and the other weird thing was the not going to the show the second night. We got in the elevator, and who walks in the elevator but Gloria Steinem?
Wow, the legend.
I'm just like, we all went. Ah! We tried not to freak out because she's such a legend to me personally, and
iconic. Yeah.
She is an icon, and I just said, oh my gosh, thank you so much for putting on the show, because I mean, she was one of the founders of Voters for Choice, I believe, and she emceed a little bit, introduced the band, and I just said, thank you for coming. And she's like, no, thank you for coming. And I was like, oh my God, dissolve. But yeah, so that's how I got in. Well, just through fate. It wasn't even.
I'm thankful that you took the chance on the good juju of the world, for the good that you were doing for the fan community with the fanzine, coming back around again and getting you in the building. Not only selfishly for you, but also because of the stories you're able to tell, and now we get to have this conversation. So it's a little bit selfish.
Karma is real. Yeah. I believe in karma. A lot of good things have come to me as a result. So I had to share that part because it was hilarious.
Absolutely. I think we should go ahead and because these shows are so historic for a number of reasons, we should just kind of separate things here. And we'll talk about the music and the performances from the two nights, and then we'll talk about the context, because obviously the shows don't happen without the context. So I've got a couple of quotes here from some reviews that happened right around the time that the shows happened. Here's the first one here. It goes, with Irons in the rhythm section, Pearl Jam didn't just sound better than they did with Eperzies. They sounded better than almost any band on earth. In fact, by the time Neil Young ambled onto stage to join in on the final encore, it was hard to shake the sense that we were witnessing a singular evening. That is from J.D. Considine in Rolling Stone on March 9th, 1995.
He's no schlub.
You know, from that first night, the moment after the moment after Daughter, where Ed introduces Jack and acknowledges that some people were upset that Dave Eperzies wasn't there, actually saying Dave's name, which is rare for him at that point, and going, you should thank him, Jack, because he saved the band. We've talked about on this show before how that's 100% true that Jack saved the band and was able to navigate them he was the bridge and to Matt. In the moment, though, presumably you already knew Jack was in the band because of Self-Pollution Radio, maybe just because of the people that you knew.
And just relationships, yeah.
What do you recall about the mood in the room, and what were people saying around you during or even after the show about this?
Well, I kind of have a small kind of crew, I guess, that would feed into that. And honestly, we were all kind of trepidatious because I had been to the Bridge School shows, and it's not a real good test of, he was great acoustically with them, but it's not, you don't know how it's going to go electrically. And I just wasn't sure about it, to be honest. And I think we were all, and plus the other thing is, Dave was really beloved. I certainly wasn't somebody that was booing the choice. I would never boo that kind of a situation. But, it was, I think we were all I was personally pretty trepidatious because I think Dave was such a power drummer and such a big part. And especially since Vitology was written by all the band, that was like a big deal to me that they gave all the songwriting credits to everybody. Because
Jack came.
They don't usually give them to drummers.
Jack came from such a different sound too.
Such a different, such a different sound. So I was kind of not sure how this is going to go, for sure. So that's where I was on it, and that may have been what my other people in my crew were saying as well.
Let me ask you, Kathy.
We'll see how this goes.
Do you think it was maybe like intentional for Ed to have Glorified G succeed Jack's intro? Like watching it back now, all these years later, it feels that it seems purposeful almost. Did it feel that way at the time?
When I was reviewing those shows, I'm so glad you brought that up because I was like, how ballsy and wild to have a song that was so closely associated with, the mesh, the crashing of their two personality types, like, and how far apart they were in a lot of ways. Just, for happenstance, Dave was raised in Texas. I mean, that was just part of his life.
Yeah.
It was not like, it was just part of his life. So, and then followed by Go which is such a huge Dave song.
Right.
That
felt so awkward to me when like, again, we were talking off air about how there's so many touch points in Pearl Jam's career, and we do all these shows that are about all different things, and sometimes you just don't happen to talk about a show or a moment or a story. And so when we go back to listen to these or even watch these shows again to kind of get ourselves ready for this conversation, I had forgotten about the set list. I had forgotten about these touch points. And I'm like, fuck, like that's a wild move, Edward, to be dropping Glorified G and then Go. I mean, did you guys feel that in the building or?
I did, because I've got a little, tiny little backstory there. I knew Dave A pretty well, just through the zine and all that. And he actually called me after he got fired.
No kidding.
Yeah. And I said, because I had blown out my knee and he had heard that and called. I just called to see how your knee was. I says, dude, you're calling me about my knee? I need to talk to you. And oh my God, just a class A guy that he called to see how I was about it all. He says, well, I'm just sorry it happened and I'm sorry you have to go through this. And we had a great conversation. But so, that was my little backstory. So to say I was slightly trepidatious about how it was going to go down. But that said, if we wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for Jack Irons meeting Eddie around a campfire. 100%. So, and I also have said the entire arc of Jack Irons' career with Pearl Jam, he spiritually saved the life of my band. And we wouldn't be here talking about the band still if it wasn't for that, so. Well,
he was at the forefront of the inception, bringing that tape in the first place. And then obviously many years later drumming with them. So it's amazing to think just how he played such a pivotal role in the fabric of the band's timeline.
Huge.
And there's so much like broad brushstroke where he doesn't even factor in. Like a lot of folks, when you talk to them about Pearl Jam, they don't even think about that side of the story, not realizing that this is the untold story for a lot of, mainstream fans. They don't realize
they don't get
that there's no Pearl Jam without Jack in a lot of ways.
This is why I find 1995 to be the most fascinating year in the band's history because it's such a.
It was a lot.
You say trepidatious a couple times. That's the word. Like, how do you in the moment? You have no. There's no internet really yet. You know, Prodigy. If you're dialing on the Prodigy chat rooms, that's about it. But like, you don't know.
AOL message board, AOL chat rooms.
It's few and far between at that point.
So Jason, you brought up set list,
yeah.
Right? So what did Stone say following that?
Well, they dedicated Go. They get dedicated to Go to Dave. This is dedicated to Dave A. Actually,
right.
To Dave actually.
Yeah.
You know, Stone had to fire him, so that's pretty awesome.
That was strange. That was a little strange.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really cool of him to acknowledge Dave because you can't just ignore 3 years of your history, right? No. But to say it outright, I thought was interesting, maybe a little ballsy, but I don't know. Maybe it kind of put a pin in the trepidatiousness of it all. Like, hey, we're acknowledging this. We're not ignoring this. I'm acknowledging it. Ed's acknowledging it. But we got Jack, and we're doing fine. And I believe Ed said, was it maybe the next night? Like the band is. What did he say? I got it.
He said we feel like a real band now.
There it is.
Yeah.
We feel like a real band now.
Yeah.
And that's not a small thing. You know,
well, they needed it.
They've just. Well, I think you nailed it when you talk about how weird 1995 was. I mean, we're just the year's getting started with this. It started off with Self-Pollution, and then we have this. But then what's to come is the self-done tour with all the, you know, Pearl Jam design tickets and all that stuff coming. So you're going to have a lot to cover this year. There's a lot to go around.
So I was reading the Pearl Jam 20 book just to kind of reacclimate myself again. And I'm like, oh my God, you get the Far East tour, the first Australia tour, San Francisco, the cancellation or the postponement really of San Diego, Milwaukee. They're going to take a break, and then they don't take the break, and they did Milwaukee and Soldier Field, and you know they kind of gloss over the band just had to go into the studio. Well, they went to the studio. I don't know that all of them were ready to go into the studio, but we won't talk about that. But yeah, it's very.
That's another thing. But the year is crazy.
It's a crazy year. It's a crazy year. It's a transitional year, and without Jack to be this glue. It's not happening.
Yeah.
And so when he said
it's a lot.
Very key.
I think they were laying the foundation. I think they were just in that.
Let's talk about Deep. So it kind of like almost implodes there at the end. And Jack keeps that groove going. And the other guys are kind of just sort of like letting fate control their guitars. You know, what did you notice about Jack's playing that surprised you, maybe excited you? I mean, the end of Immortality comes to mind for us, the way Jeff and Stone kind of smile. And then they groove with him during the end of Blood. Yeah. I mean, so when you look back at that show, what about Jack's playing really stands out to you still to this day?
Well, yeah, thank you for that, because I just noticed that it seemed like the guitars had a lot more breathing room. And that was, and it's not that they were lost in the mix before that, but there were a lot of power and not as much nuance in Pearl Jam before Jack came into the mix. And I mean, because Dave A is just a powerful, powerful drummer. He's the cymbal king, and that fills up all the empty spaces in Pearl Jam. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a judgment. That's just what I remember live about. There's certain things like, just so many little riffs and fills, and those were kind of taken away. You know, Jack is not a flashy drummer. He's a great, powerful, organic drummer, but it's not that same flash. So what I noticed most, especially revisiting both of the shows, was, the other thing, I don't think they knew what to do with the space. Are we supposed to fill this up? Are we going to meander, mosey here? Are we going to start to jam? You know, it seemed like they were still finding their legs. So it was a little uncomfortable, and it was uncomfortable for me just, you know, with the catalog of seeing a lot of shows before that. Going, ooh, are they going to make it through this? You know, how's this going to go? You know, but then the second night was much more comfortable. You could tell.
I mean, it only been, like you said, like maybe 2 or 3 performances in total over the course of a few months. Yeah. So it was natural for them. I mean, I remember State of Love and Trust in night 2 was like, he's playing like a blast beat. And it's like, that's not how you play that song. And so you could tell there was some, incongruities with rehearsal and just not being used to how Jack's going to get in or out of a break, you know? And so some songs kind of swam a little bit side to side, but no one got upset about it. I think that they were just enjoying the moment so much that they just let things kind of ride. And like you said, we feel like a real band up here after Not For You. So
yeah, I think that to a degree that I could see just reading the body language as a seasoned by then concert goer, that triangulation of Stone and Jeff and the drummer was just a really important foundation in my Pearl Jam listening experience. And you could tell when it wasn't quite working that Stone and Jeff would just go and stand at the corner of the drum riser and then say, this is what you need. They would show him, like the rhythm guitarist would show him the rhythm. Stone would just go, it's a thing, but it was very subtly done and very much just classy, just like, okay, they would either go with it or just say, they would turn to Jack and go, here's how this one is. And I think that was cool. And I saw that a lot, not necessarily at that show, but to come.
Well, let's talk about the next show, January 15th.
Yeah.
I mean, we come out of the gates hot, right?
Fun.
Jason?
Well, it's interesting they open with Release both nights.
Yeah, there were a lot of similar song performances across the two nights. That a little unusual of them, even that early in the career, to have so much similarity. But I felt like the ones that were done again were better. Not that they weren't good night one, but like just ripped.
So much better.
Oh my God. Like it was wild.
Made a big difference.
How about I'll pick up a few more moments that I wrote down just as I was listening to it. The moment that Ed sings, "She holds the hand that holds her down, she'll rise above," in Daughter was extra powerful to me.
Yeah.
I mentioned State of Love and Trust just being different because Jack's playing it different, but none of the guys seem to mind. And then how about let's talk about Immortality. Because both nights, that song just found a way to completely explode in this beautiful outro of I don't even know what. But it was like, this is what this song can do? Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, that build, it just built so nicely. And it filled up the room for me. Yeah, that was just really intense.
What did you make
really
of Blood?
Intense.
Because the way Blood ended too was...
Oh, see, that was rough for me because I'm just like, Jack's not quite getting it, but they just powered through and it was all right, but it was a little like, maybe this isn't the song for him quite yet.
Well, that's the song that I think Ed has talked about that, or maybe it was Stone, where it's like there's two different tempos. And they shouldn't work together, almost like Even Flow shouldn't work together because he wrote it in two different ways. And so it's really tricky. I think actually maybe Matt Cameron said that, where it's it's hard to get from one to the next. And so if you're a new drummer and this is the second time, or maybe it's the third after Self Pollution.
Yeah, to launch
you've ever played the song.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to get that right away. That song is so powerful though, man.
So overall, from a performative point of view, where do you sit with these two shows? Maybe from one to the next in the annals of all the shows you've been to. What were you feeling at the time? How do you feel about it now, performatively?
I think they were listening to them retrospectively. They came off better than I felt like they were when I was there. To be honest,
interesting.
Yeah, I think that my personal I don't know if this is going to happen or not. But then, of course, I was elevated after the shows and loved the hell out of them. But then watching them again, I'm like, oh, okay. They were just finding their way. Mm-hmm. We have the benefit of time and history to show us that, obviously.
Let's get into some of the benefit of time, or maybe the not benefit of time. And we'll talk about the context of these shows, the reason why they happened, the Voters for Choice. It was a not-for-profit, you mentioned before, started by Gloria Steinem, and you had Lisa Germano there, you had L7, you were on the cap, you had Neil Young, and you've got Pearl Jam playing these shows about women's reproductive rights. That somehow that's still a thing that we're talking about today. And before the first show...
Mark the 22nd. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, before the show, for the first show, Ed and some of the L7 gals and Gloria Steinem were at the 930 Club, which Pearl Jam had played before in 91, I want to say, and did a little press conference. And actually, you can go online and you can watch that, which I did. And I was like, this is a throwback, my goodness. And Ed says in this press conference, he goes, I know what it is not to be heard. So if I can raise my hand and speak out for some of these people who don't have a voice at the moment, then I almost feel a responsibility. And he went on to say, I was told that until I grow a uterus, I should stay out of the issue. If all the rich, white, middle-aged men who oppose a woman's right to choose stayed out too, I will too. That's where we're at. And they haven't even played a note yet.
Boom. And that's why I love Eddie better. He's just calling a spade. He's right. He's absolutely right. And
think about the guy from 2 or 3 years earlier who was hiding behind his hair. And now he's doing this. You were up close and personal. You follow these guys from day one. What do you make of the transformation from between those 3 years that you were following him?
Well, I just think it was a beautiful thing to see him grow in confidence and come out at the other side of all of the personal difficulties he had to go through after Pearl Jam got huge. I mean, it was really not comfortable for him, and he really didn't know who he was. And, he was really finding, like, how am I going to cope with this and still keep making music? I mean, he said it at night 2 that this is my religion, talking about music, and how important that it was to him. And I think that, he wanted to keep making music. He'd been doing it for so long. My God. Yeah. I mean, Bad Radio started in 88, 87, 88. And that was his vehicle for coping. And to have to watch it be transformed when it's completely out of your control. I mean, my God.
It's interesting too, to think about Jack's role in that development too, in the sense that Jack essentially was the shepherd that brought him to Pearl Jam. And ultimately, I mean, obviously, it's not like I've ever been told this directly, but I've always had the sense that Eddie seemed to adore Jack on a lot of levels, just as a human, And for him, this idea, like I feel like we're a real band right now, right? I felt like there was something empowering about being on stage and playing music. And you talk about 95 and what's to come. I mean, this was a band that was emboldened. And I don't know if they make the same choices and if Eddie is quite as assertive in what he's doing and what he's saying if he doesn't have Jack at the kit behind him. There's something about like this a confirmation
Security
and affirmation on a lot of levels about having him there. It's almost like we've come full circle, which seems weird to say about 1995 because here we are in 2025 and they're still making music. But at the time,
Well, I think that there's a big through line that might be lost on some people who haven't been around for a minute. If you look there's some Bad Radio video out there. I don't know if you ever watched the Bad Radio show. Ed used to have the side of his head shaved because Anthony Kiedis had the side of his head shaved. He was a huge Chili Peppers fan back in the day, and for them, when he was working at the Casbah Club, doing security or whatever it was that he did, in San Diego, I think that's all laying the foundation to why we're talking right now, is because of him being around and meeting Jack and just all of that. It's just, that's huge for him.
You mentioned
that's
karma.
A through line in his life. It's karma. It's a through line of his life, to have Jack there kind of as a foundational piece, and I think that Jack's kind of, I don't know much about him, but he just seems like a pretty spiritual guy. I mean, if you listen to his solo albums, he's kind of ethereal, kind of spiritual, kind of in touch, plugged into the world.
All the stuff that he's put out in the last couple of years, but if it's just him grooving, he puts those things out every once in a while, or even I think it's Slow Burn Drifters, the thing he's kind of involved with now. Like that's very just like, kind of chill and kind of groovy, but like it's not pointed. It's not like exactly.
Yeah.
It's not flashy. He's not that kind of a drummer, which is interesting that he was in the Chili Peppers, right?
Yeah.
How does that work? He did somehow.
Maybe they needed him to not be that way. Although having Chad Smith, who is he literally wears Flash, a one suit of Flash. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, and I think that I think that it's important to talk about the tag in, was it Daughter? I think. Yeah. Stick of Pussies. That's a Bad Radio song.
Mhm.
My body, your body's, but that little tag, that's from a Bad Radio song. I mean, that's how long Ed has been he wasn't into women's health, just, I don't know, when a whim. This goes back a minute for him, And so
and people didn't realize that. If you were a casual fan, and by the way, if you go online and you look up that MTV News thing and see the clip of him talking pre night one, they kind of splice in with some interviews of fans going to these shows, and some of them were like, "Oh, I don't care about the context. I just want to hear the music." And it's like, okay, if you're coming here and you don't know that, and you're like, "Ugh, why is he talking about this?" Like, dude, do you not understand who this guy is?
Yeah, I mean, what was the name of the band when they played Slims? Hello, the David J. Gunn Band. This concert was dedicated to the memory of Dr. David J. Gunn.
Right.
But they played the whole Pensacola show the year prior.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's a space here for us to talk a little bit about that through line, right?
Yes.
I mean, after Black, Ed goes on about how the musician fan dynamic has changed since the 1970s, where I'm quoting him here, anyone can do this. The chords are the same. You can be up here and sing songs about pro-choice. And all these years later, do we think that enough artists have actually taken that challenge on and used their platform to try to affect change?
I think a lot have. I also think a lot of artists are too careful about it in some ways. Just because social media is so fast now, and that wasn't around then. You had a lot more leeway to talk about things, and MTV was really the only place where anything would come up, and they wouldn't. They would just go whatever.
Well, it could take 2 weeks for it to reach the other side of the world, right? I mean, nowadays,
now it's a minute. It's literally a minute. I think that people are too precious about their celebrity. Some are, and I get it. It's a career. They got mouths to feed and families and all that. And I'm not discounting the fact that there is a business side to being a band. That's important to remember, but,
It feels like at that time they were more willing to risk it all, because while they were huge, they still, it looks like, we believe they still lived their lives pretty modestly. They didn't have, they might be selling all these records, but they still live lives of normalcy, so to speak, as best they could. That's harder now. And it's been harder over the last 20 years as the internet's blown up and social media's blown up. And whether it be this issue or things like piracy, you think back about Metallica, Lars Ulrich, Napster, the whole thing, and how nobody joined them, much like nobody joined Pearl Jam about Ticketmaster. It's like, they're stealing our, I know we're making a lot of money, I know we have a lot of them, but it's the principle of the thing, and no one wanted to risk their careers or risk anything for that. And no one wants to risk anything by joining Pearl Jam for Ticketmaster, and no one's really risking it. I mean, there's more younger artists now, I think, that are doing so. A lot of women artists, thank God. Billie Eilish is the world, Taylor, all these people. But it feels like not enough have, because they're too careful, like you said. Yeah,
and I mean, I know a little bit about how that money flow goes in band situations, and I get it. It's not just, they're not just money grubbing. It's literally, they have people on retainer. They have people that work for them all the time, whether there's a tour or not. They have, a whole big business. There's big business behind it, just to keep them going and manage their shit. And so I get it, but at the same time, I feel like, I think Ed and everyone in the band probably, but Ed speaks more, is that he's just learned to be diplomatic, but still hold his ground. And I really admire that, to just still be able to state what you believe in, but do it carefully.
Especially as things have gotten more divisive. And the economics of music now, where you make your money touring and merchandise, where the album is just kind of the reason you do it, which it was reversed before. Like I was explaining to my mom the other day that artists back in the 50s and 60s didn't tour nearly that much. You just crushed on radio and sold records, and that was how you made your money. And Paul talks about the Beatles all the time.
Yeah,
not touring,
absolutely.
So
the constant, and the whole business model of the music industry has completely changed since then. It's completely changed. Nobody makes money on making music. It's not. It's not lost on me. And I don't think it's watering down anything. It's also, they have families, and you say the wrong thing and people will come after you. And there's some crazy people out there. And he did have a stalker. It did have a stalker. So I get it.
He missed the mirror ball sessions because of that, like 2 weeks later from this show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, you talk about saying things, controversial things or things that might trigger folks. I mean, during the encore of night 2, Ed finally starts talking politics and the reason why they're there in DC in the first place. And he says, quote, "This is getting serious. We took care of this 22 years ago at the time, but lives are at stake. We're going to have to spend some of our time acting on this because it's becoming a big problem."
How prescient he was.
Well, I was going to say, we're arguably, you could argue that we're worse off than we were 30 years ago in this regard. As a fan who went to these shows, and obviously as a fan who's grown alongside the band in their efforts, how do you feel audiences at Pearl Jam shows recently react to Ed's thoughts on the current state of women's reproductive rights? Like, have we become numb or resigned to this? Is there still fight displayed like we saw at Constitution Hall? Or
I'm so frustrated by the fandom at large, and I'm not talking about us. I'm talking when I go to shows and I hear the shut up and sing and we don't want to hear your opinions and the lack of tolerance. I just think that the climate of the world has created a lack of judgment and intolerance that is really frustrating. I think that it's been pointed out in the Pearl Jam lexicon before. I think PJ20, maybe when the booing in, was it? I don't remember which 2000 show it was where they got booed. Uniondale. I was at that show and I remember the damn show. Yeah, 03. Thank you. Wherever it was. And, that
Strong
was uncomfortable.
Island, Kathy.
Strong Island. I know. I was there. I took a train out there and I forgot. But, that's 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, and how things have changed since then. And it's upsetting and frustrating. And I think that the band seems to be more careful with what they say. They're just taking action instead, which is fine with me. Just take action. Just give money to causes.
Respond, right? Respond.
Just respond. Don't react, respond.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said in that. Not to quote a great song or anything, but, a reaction is usually out of anger and no good comes out of it. But a response is well thought out.
Kathy, we are conditioned to react now. That is the whole purpose of social media. That is the purpose of the algorithms, is to get us to a react. Boo, boo, double tap, swipe left, swipe right.
Yeah.
It's immediate. The world demands immediacy in reaction, in action. And there's no time to consider. We had time to consider back then.
Yeah.
Never
wrong.
mind $5 ticket prices. Inflation, people, relax. Like, not
these tickets for $25. This show tickets for $25.
Well, they're free for you.
I thought that was hilarious. All my postcard writing was for nothing.
Did you get carpal tunnel from writing?
No, here's the funny thing. I have a rubber stamp manufacturing business. I made rubber stamps.
Outstanding.
So it was quasi-manual. You weren't like making copies.
Kathy's cheat code.
The
well,
cheat code.
Hey. No, I was
up, down, left, right, select, start.
It took my hand to put it on there.
That's true. There was manual labor involved.
There was manual labor involved. But we have to also talk about Act of Love.
Yes.
Historically. Because that's important that was played. And that was the coolest thing. That to me was the highlight of the whole weekend, was getting to see and hear Act of Love being played. It was just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
What did you know about that song before that night? Because it wasn't really known that was a thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure
I hadn't
we had a lot of
yet.
things in advance. No, it was just a beautiful song, and you could tell how much fun they were having.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just watching the video, I'm like, oh my God, they had so much fun. Stone was bouncing all over the place and he was singing so vigorously, and Ed was just like willing to step back
He loves
And
it. Like we saw him at Dana Point. They're doing Grammy Out of Control. He's hopping all over the place like a kid in a candy store. I tell you, it's the best when you see him just loving life.
I am writing a college thesis about Grammy Out of Control and Stone being unhinged during that song, but that's for another time. But it was just
Cowabunga,
really
the story
cool.
of Stone Gossard.
Cowabunga! Oh God, my bestie turned to me and said, "What's happening right now?" I said, "Dude, this is happening." Yeah, it was weird. Anyway, no, I got to see the '93 tour dates over Labor Day weekend in Vancouver and Portland, and the Gorge, the first Gorge show at the Gorge was just barely built and the fence came down. I was in front of the fence and had to run. And they're opening for Neil. So it was really cool to see them open for Neil and that whole Portland Meadows experience and them shooting the Time magazine cover and all that stuff. So they just love Neil, and it was so obvious and so clear how beloved he was. And then of course all the Bridge School appearances and all of that. They had done 2 Bridge Schools by now, by 95, 92 and 94. So it was just really cool to see them with him, and what a privilege to have been there.
Like Jack, Paul was talking about with Jack kind of being this security blanket, this glue, this guy that made them feel like a real band. And then on top of that, you've got the mentor, Uncle Neil, shepherding them through the murky waters. Like, guys, they're going to be these ups and downs. Just keep on your morals, keep on your ethics, keep on doing what you guys do, and you're going to find your way through it. And I'll help you. I'll shine the light for you. If I can quote a song that came out 25 years later, but that was a very important moment, and I think it foreshadowed a lot too.
Like it, yes. Oh my gosh.
I want to.
That was cool. And I think Ed tagged it the second night too.
After River Mirror.
Or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He wanted to be a part of it. He wanted to be singing again.
That's true. Well, I mean,
but it was just
and they played it a few times. I think in Australia, right? In Asia.
Yeah.
Like the next month or so.
Yeah. Well, and then Neil stepped up in Golden Gate Park too. But that's
sure did. I think he played it twice.
Yeah. Right. What else was gonna do?
Damn you, tuna sandwich! Damn you!
Damn you, tuna sandwich! I remember that.
I've got a quote here from Robert Hilburn from the LA Times. He says,
Yep.
The deeper we get into the 90s, the more Pearl Jam's Eddie Vedder is looking like someone who can stand proudly alongside the best of the 60s rock stars. We are not dealing with recycled sounds, but renewed idealism and conscience. As someone who has been in this fan base and ingrained in the hardcore fan group, did you share this view of Ed then at the time? And did these shows reveal something new about maybe the purpose of the band and the direction that Ed was taking Pearl Jam?
I think the thing that drew me into Pearl Jam in the first place was his intensity and passion. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, it was Unplugged that did it. When he stood in that chair and wrote Pro-Choice on his arm, I thought, this is it. This is something that the world has never seen before. And it literally changed my life in every possible way. That I was recording it for a friend. This is how I got into Pearl Jam. I was recording Unplugged for a friend. And I said, I'll just watch it before I send it to him. And I was like, yeah, completely blown away. So it was only, 3 years later that we were at these shows, seeing how this person has been allowed to grow and use the things that he believes in to help save himself, honestly. Because, I mean, my God, this is right after Kurt Cobain died. I mean, these shows, we might not have had a Pearl Jam. I had to go to these shows because the last show I went to was 4/8/94. That was, the Boston Garden shows. Yeah.
10.
So that would have been 4/10. You're right before Saturday Night Live.
Mm-hmm.
And
did you go to Orpheum?
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Another story.
Oh.
That was another one where I wasn't supposed to be there, and they said, "Where's Kathy?" And put a ticket at the window. I had to leave my hotel.
You're like a living Volt release.
It was one of those things. Put yourself in the path of the storm, and the storm somehow carries you into the show.
Okay.
Oh gosh.
But I think that Ed's activism has saved his life, honestly, and it was no more prevalent to me than for him to be I mean, if you look at that press conference, he's sitting there with some giants and talking about, important things that mean something to him. And that, I think that gave him a purpose, and it gave him the ability to filter out all the shit that was foisted at him, Yeah. So I think it's speaking of context, I think it was really important for him to have that and to be able to put on a benefit like this is a great thing, to help him cope. And we all get the benefit.
Well, let's tackle one more quote from that same LA Times review. Quote, "Today's rock and its audience must find its own heroes and symbols. Cobain was the first candidate, but he found the burden too great. The weight is now on Vedder's shoulders, and he seemed ready Saturday to carry it." Again, Robert Hilburn, LA Times. 30 years on, do you think that Ed took this on? And if so, do you think he's been successful? Has Pearl Jam been successful? What do you think?
Took on the burden of I think through no fault of his own. Yes, absolutely. I don't know if it's something that he pursued. I think he's surrounded with a great family on every level, including his Pearl Jam family. And I think that that's what got him through. And I think that gave him the ability to survive. I mean, every singer from every band in the whole grunge lexicon is gone. Almost every one of them is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems unreal. If you'd asked me how that was going to go down back 30 years ago, I would have said no. But Lane is gone. Mark Lanigan is gone.
Kurt
I don't know.
was around them when the whole Kurt thing went down. So it was that we could do a show about that. It was very intense and painful. And I just wanted my band to survive because the music meant so much to me, and it still does. It means just as much to me now as it did then. And I still cry like a fucking baby whenever they play Release. That they opened with Release at both of these shows was embarrassing for my... Oh my God. It was embarrassing for my my seat compadres, because I literally was just sucking air during the first night, because I think it was just such a relief to hear this song that was one of the things that really pulled me into the band, and that they could still play it so beautifully with as much passion and as much emotion. It made me feel like everything was going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, there's a very famous number where Ronnie Van Zant once sang, I heard Mr. Young sing about her. I heard old Neil put her down. I hope Neil Young will remember. A Southern man don't need him around anyhow.
Man don't read him, man. Yeah.
And I feel like when you grow up in a music scene and you're around somebody like Neil, who was planting flags at a time where it was not easy to plant flags.
Mm-hmm.
It's the kind of thing where, to your point, this cause, this purpose, this role, it found Eddie, even if it wasn't something he was looking for, So
it's through no fault of his own. That said, I don't think he was willing to back down. He won't back down. Pulling all the TP energy in there.
Yeah,
it just felt like, and I think that Neil probably showed him that you can just get on and still have your passions and your intense beliefs, and you just write a song like This Note's for You and talk about how commercial rock is and whatever. Just keep making the music you want to make. And
I think it was a reminder. He reminded them, write what you feel, right? What's true to you. Stay true to yourself, because that's what got you here. If you had to sell your soul and write about shit you don't know, that got you there. Somehow you were faking it till you make it. Well, if you try and get real, all of a sudden people are going to find you out. But if you've been real the whole time and you found this level, just keep doing that. And I think he reminded them to just carry on. And so was he successful? Yeah, I think you're right. I think he just was himself, and that by default was the success.
I am myself like you somehow. It's not just about his dad, in my opinion. That's a big fucking lyric to me, because that's like, I'm part of your world. But I feel like Ed might have a lot of privileges, and he's Eddie Vedder. But I still feel he's so relatable even now.
Yeah.
And I felt like he was relatable then because he was willing to fight and willing to find a way through all the mess. And it was just so not easy. What a muck. They just had a battle. It was a battle.
Yeah.
It just seemed like a battle.
It was.
And they're only halfway through the decade, the hardest decade they had at this point. And like we said, this is gonna be a long 30th anniversary year for anybody who wants to talk about this stuff like we do. Just so many touch points, and this being one of the first. Being that we're 30 years on from these shows, then Kathy, I have to ask, can you give me like a greatest memory and maybe a greatest takeaway from these shows now that you've gotten to reminisce about them a little bit? Yeah.
I think just the energy and the funny Ed and somebody coming out in the Newt Gingrich and Bob Dole mask at the end of L7. That I don't think that's anywhere, but they came out and danced to whatever that L7 encore was, and just there was a lot more joy than I thought there would be. I think that that gave me a lot of hope, coming off of, Dave getting let go and Kurt dying, and like, how is my band going to survive this? Oh my God. And it just really laid the foundation for them to carry on. And so I think that's probably why I flew back there with no tickets. It's like, I wanted to see if they can make it. It's like, are you guys going to make it? Is this going to happen? Right. Or is my band going to be gone? But I just felt like they've always been my band. That's how I'm going to go see my band again. I have that personal relationship. And I think that's the kind of relationship they foster for a lot of people, that they're our band. I
don't know how many music groups, bands, artists, whatever, have a number of fanzines, podcasts, books written by fans, message boards. I don't know how many there are that have as much of that as this band does. And that's saying something to what you're talking about, I think.
It's a deep bench. What you guys are doing is miraculous. Just going the extra mile and taking a deep look on all the things that in the world and that are related, because there's it's such a deep bench in the Pearl Jam world, because there's just so inclusive in the people that they love and I got into a lot of bands because of Pearl Jam. I would never, I'm like, what do you mean? When you see Mudhoney 50 times, you can't help but like them.
Oh my God.
They've opened for Pearl Jam a lot. My Morning Jacket, Kings of Leon, all the people that opened for them, the people that
Ben Harper.
they champion.
Yeah.
They were early adopters of a lot of people that, a lot of bands. I think maybe the way they have been adopted in a lot of ways by maybe Neil and Pete Townsend and other rock icons. Bruce.
Listen, if anyone can get Fugazi to reunite, it's going to be Eddie Vedder.
Yeah.
Oh, don't even. I was at that show too when they crowd surfed at Fugazi.
Oh, really?
In May of 93. Yeah. Then it was Stone and Ed were at Fugazi on 5/1/93 while they were recording Verses because they were out here.
Right.
Recording it. And Ed crowd surfed at Fugazi. It was funny. What's happening? That was an amazing show. Huge Fugazi fan. So
Kathy Davis, cool. I feel like you're gonna be a recurring guest, I think, at some point because of all the stories that you have and the perspective that you have. It's an honor for us to have you on here, considering what you've done for the community. We just hopped on the old train here a couple of years ago. You've been doing the business for the people for 33 years now.
Yeah,
been around.
I mean.
Yeah, I got to do more with the archives. There's a lot there.
Thank you for giving us such tall shoulders to stand upon.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, guys. Really, that's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Guys, it's the creator of Footsteps Fanzine and 2 Feet Thick. And she's been to a million shows and has a million stories and amazing perspective. It's Kathy Davis.
Thank you. Woo! It was a pleasure.
Once again, big thanks to Kathy Davis, formerly of 2 Feet Thick and the Footsteps Fanzine, for coming on and helping us remember these shows and what they stood for and the performances, because they are, as you said, legendary. They're iconic.
They are. I really appreciate her introspection. It was great to get that perspective from somebody who was there and can kind of ground that entire conversation within the context of the time that the shows happened. So could not be more grateful to have had her on, and look forward to having her on again.
Absolutely. She proved that she's got stories. She's got great perspective. I want to know how many other shows she indirectly got invited to by members of the band. She didn't have a ticket, but some formative years for the band, and she was right there for the ride. She's a legend in this community. I hope that she can find a way to archive 2 Feet Thick for all of us to see in public again, because this is how we learned things 15, 20 years ago.
It was a mainstay in my Pearl Jam experience. I can tell you that
absolutely.
much.
Well, again, thank you all for being here. We are starting 2025 off strong, we think. And if you agree, please go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications if you're watching here on YouTube. If you are old school, though, listening audio only, Paul, what should they do?
Well, you're kindly rating, reviewing, and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform of choice. You are feeding that algorithm, because that is your 2025 New Year's resolution.
And on top of that, usually when you resolve something, you're trying to better yourself. Mm-hmm. You can better humanity too, and that's by donating to our fundraiser of the month. It's Owl Rescue, and they're on a mission to rid the world of sex trafficking and child exploitation. So please go ahead and scan that QR code on the screen right now, or tap on the link in our Instagram bio to donate a few bucks over there. Help them out so they can help end that stuff. And if you send $5 or more, we will go ahead and send you stickers and a pin. And if you want to get one of our podcast shirts, as Paul is wearing, we'll give you $5 off. And we've got more than just the shirts. We've got all kinds of really cool stuff to help support the show, keep the show afloat, do really cool things. The online shop, you can see some of the products there now. There's hoodies and there's coasters and mugs. And
Jason, I tell you, when you feed the algorithm, you feed the community, and that's really what matters.
Hey, don't poo-poo the product.
I'm saying, when you feed the algorithm, you feed the community.
Well,
that's what I mean.
Okay, I didn't realize the algorithm was the online shop.
Well, I mean, I think the algorithm is just getting this out there and continuing the conversation beyond just the two of us. Is it not?
I think so.
I hope so.
Guys, we're starting 2025 the way we ended it, falling off the rails at the end of every episode. I don't know if you guys realize that we do these shows late at night, man. Hey, look at these bags.
This is dedication.
Look at these bags. You can't fake this.
No.
Anywho, we do have an online shop. Everything that you buy there goes back into the show. We really do appreciate your support. Patreon's the same way. Lots of really cool extra content over there behind the poster with Brad Clausen. So many cool episodes of that. Got 2 more coming up next week that we're going to record, and a great community on Discord who do all kinds of fun things, games, and conversations. We have a whole channel dedicated to the Cybertruck and how much we hate it. Yeah, that's fun.
Lots of threads on there.
Lots of threads. So, anyways, that's it for this week. We really do appreciate you coming by and listening, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on those 95 Constitution Hall shows, because they were so important to this band's story. And we look to talk more about the 30th anniversaries of so many great touch points in the band's catalog and their story throughout this year, and many other cool things. Hey, 25th anniversary of Binaural coming in May, Paul.
Nuts.
How cool is that?
We're
getting ahead of ourselves. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next week. And until we do, you've been listening to or watching
The State of Love and Trust.